Hey there, friends in the digital world. Welcome back once again to another episode of Spliced and Later. Bear with me. I think my microphone's about to fall down. Okay, I've got it. Welcome back to another episode. TV talk this time. No movie review this week. Should be some more coming in the future, so be sure to stick around for that. But first off, I just want to thank everybody who is still listening or who made the transition over to a fully YouTube show here. If you caught the last episode or you didn't, you may or may not know that I had a podcast hosting system that was sending out all my episodes to Spotify and Apple and all of that. But I was getting very minimal listens on there for good reason. So just threw it all away and whatever, throw it all away. If you do ever want to recommend this podcast to other people, there are 239 episodes currently still on Spotify, and I don't think they'll go anywhere. They're also on YouTube. But if it's easier to get people to listen to that, by all means, go for it. But my Expendables 4 review last week got good enough listens for YouTube. People who were listening on Spotify are listening on YouTube, so it's good that that transition isn't terrible. I guess, you can just flip your phone over if you don't want to see the pictures. That's fine. We'll see how we go moving forward. But so far, pretty positive about the whole experience. So what are we doing today? Today we are talking about a Star Wars show. Weirdly, on Spliced in Later, we only have two consistencies. Well, three. The first consistency obviously being if I see a movie, I review it as soon as I've seen it. The second being MCU content mainly, movies or TV shows. We keep building on that. And the third one, weirdly enough, is every time there's a new Star Wars show, I talk about it. At least in the first season. I don't talk about continuing seasons of shows because I often feel like in many cases you would probably just be saying the same thing. Either a show continues to be good or a show isn't good anymore, which isn't that exciting to talk about in either respect. But weirdly, the Star Wars, it's odd to have picked that because if you're regular listeners here on Spliced and Later, you know that my feelings about Star Wars at the moment are conflicted. I was, and sort of still am, a huge Star Wars fan. I grew up loving the films. I'm from that terrible generation that grew up with the prequels, so we defend those. But yeah, Star Wars was a lot of fun. There was a time where I knew every inch of it before Disney bought it. And look, not that Disney hasn't made good or bad Star Wars. It's just the quality hasn't necessarily been to my liking. The disaster that was the sequel trilogy is not less from a story standpoint, but more a lack of planning standpoint. Not planning out a trilogy, just letting anyone do what they want. Apologies if you hear noise in the background. That's a cat's litter break. Good for them. I don't actually get that excited talking about it. I think most of the times I've talked about the shows, I've gone from being confused to okay with it. I did like The Mandalorian. I feel that's fallen apart as a show, unfortunately. Boba Fett I thought was interesting, but it turned into The Mandalorian. Obi-Wan was okay, but I want them to just leave it alone. No, none of this season 2 talk. And I remember I didn't give Andor a particularly good review on my first talk about it. That's the only one I'll put a little asterisk against because I have gone back and rewatched that in a Jordan way, which is to watch it all completely uninterrupted, where I don't lose track of what's going on every week, and I had a much better experience with it, and I actually think, it's a pretty fantastic show. So we continue that trend now. We are talking about Ahsoka, the newest show on Disney Plus that has just finished its 8-episode run. I don't know if this is a first season or a limited series. I know the plan apparently is to build towards a Star Wars movie that combines these shows, like Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Ahsoka. I think it's like Heir to the Empire, something like that. Not exactly sure. At the moment, I'm treating this as a self-contained series. The story is not over on the show, but I just don't know how they're going to continue it going forward. Now, I have to say, I understand people may listen to this and call me a contrarian or a hypocrite, and I understand that completely. My biggest gripe with Star Wars has always been feeling that the world, for being as large as it is creatively bankrupt, being that no matter where you go in the galaxy, all these incredible places to explore, all these species, all these different cultures and all of that, Star Wars always wants to focus on the same stuff. Jedi, Sith, Rebels, Empire, Star Destroyers, Clone Wars, all of that stuff. All relatively fun things in the Star Wars universe, but it feels very self-contained and unexpandable if that's all we ever do. I mean, the sequel trilogy was just the Empire again, but it's the First Order. The Rebels again, but it's the Resistance. And I've also been like, the biggest argument against having things in something for the sake of just nostalgia berries, remember berries, whatever they're called. In Rogue One, where the main characters are walking along and the "You'll Be Dead" guy from A New Hope walks by, and it's just like, remember him, and then your brain remembers how much you liked A New Hope, and you associate seeing that character with joy, and then your brain makes you think, oh, this is good. That sort of stuff. Forcing things in. I'll never be happy with Luke Skywalker being in The Mandalorian, regardless of whether you think it's good for the story or the CG on his face or whatever. Because I feel like Luke Skywalker is the point where The Mandalorian stopped being a new story about new characters doing their own thing and became about the same stuff again. So I've complained about that a lot. But I say that because I'm going to go into this saying that I actually really enjoyed Ahsoka, and unfortunately I enjoyed it because of things like nostalgia bait and remember berries. So I am a bit of a hypocrite. I am a bit of a contrarian. However, I will argue that there is a difference between forcing a character into something who does not fit organically to be like, hey, look who it is, or focusing on telling your own story with disregard to whether people can follow or not, because you're focused entirely on the thing you want to do. Which is why I wanted to wait to do this, but unfortunately I can't, because it's just a very small window of time I can talk about this before other stuff comes and I have to talk about that. But I'm anxious to talk to somebody who has seen Ahsoka and does not have any context as to who Ahsoka Tano is, who Sabine Wren is, who Grand Admiral Thrawn is, whatever happened in Star Wars Rebels. Mainly I want someone who's never seen Star Wars Rebels, who's never seen the Clone Wars, to watch this, and then I want to know if they enjoyed it, and two, if they were able to understand what was going along, feel like they were getting the story without feeling like they needed to know more to understand what's going on. It's the classic olden days in the MCU where you could watch an MCU movie, and maybe if you'd seen some other stuff, you might pick up on some stuff that assists in your viewing, but it's not compulsory homework. Whereas something like now with the Marvels, it does look like you need to have seen at the very least Miss Marvel and WandaVision to understand who these characters are and what their motivations and drives and all that stuff. But again, the Marvels haven't come out. I can't talk on that just yet. So I wanted to wait and talk to someone about that. I haven't been able to find anyone. And the few people that have seen it are like me, were big Star Wars Rebels fans and have enjoyed it as a continuation of Star Wars Rebels. So if you're listening to this and you are this person, feel free to comment in those little comment bottoms down the bottom. Let me know if you enjoyed it or not, or if you had problems with it, if you struggled with it, or if it was not an issue. Because I'm really curious. I would really like to know. So if you don't watch Star Wars, and if you are one of those people who's listening to this review for some reason, who does not know who Ahsoka is or anything like that, okay. Well, Ahsoka Tano is a character from the animated Star Wars world. It is a character that, up until this live-action series, has solely existed in the Dave Filoni animated universe that's existed in these gaps in Star Wars storytelling. She was first introduced in the Clone Wars TV show, first in the movie, and then the 5 seasons that were there, as the, until then, unknown apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. She was not well received, if I recall, for a mixture of things. Either you could be a toxic piece of shit, just doesn't like young women being powerful and all of that, whatever. Or you can also be like, you're introducing this character who's supposed to be a big part of Anakin Skywalker's life, but we've never heard about him. And there's never been any addressing of it in future stuff, so why should we care, I think? What's our connection to it? But thanks to some really impressive storytelling in the Clone Wars show, which was just a show that for the most part, just documented the Clone Wars between episodes 2 and 3, but also built on some growing arcs, some new characters, some lore to the Star Wars Force and all of that. Ahsoka grew into such a great, interesting, powerful character. Again, a lot due to the voice actor from Ashley Eckstein. She was fantastic. To a point where she became a fan favorite. She was absolutely fantastic character. They ended the Clone Wars prematurely. They cancelled it to focus on some other shows. They eventually had a revival in 2020 to officially end the show, and the final arc of the show was where Ahsoka Tano is at the end of the Clone Wars. When Order 66 comes down and all the Jedi are wiped out, she's having a big dramatic duel with Darth Maul and trying to survive everything with Captain Rex, another fan favorite character. She carried over into another show called Star Wars Rebels. Now, this was a show that has existed in the period of time between the end of Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith and before Star Wars, and sort of was kind of against the backdrop of the rebellion being formed against the Empire. But uniquely different to Clone Wars, it focused on brand new characters created for this show. A little rebellion cell, a little crew, a little family of 5 or 6 characters that were on their own ship, running around doing missions from various different planets and cultures. You had your Jedi Master and his apprentice. You had a Mandalorian warrior. You had a pilot from Ryloth. You had R2-D2's grumpy little brother, Chopper. So much stuff going on there. Again, the show was impeccably animated, had some great storytelling. It knew its runtime to just be 4 seasons and finished. And it built on these characters. It made them all lovable, especially characters like Ezra, who was the Jedi main character of the show, but also his master Kanan, or Sabine the Mandalorian, or Hera the pilot, all of that stuff. The show culminated in them going against a Empire bad guy, Grand Admiral Thrawn, who's like this very smart, calculating tactician who was pretty much out to defeat them specifically. And the show ended on a cliffhanger ending of sorts, but not really. It was sort of like a resolution in and of itself. Ezra made a sacrifice and blasted him and Thrawn into another galaxy far away before Star Wars actually begins. Great show. I loved every second of it, and a lot of people did too. So what Ahsoka is, it's a show about Ahsoka Tano, sort of. She's played by Rosario Dawson now. But really, it's Rebels Season 5. It's picking up the story that ended in Rebels, which Ahsoka was a part of, but not really. She was sort of alongside it as a supporting character. So it picks up that plot with Ezra and Thrawn at the other end of the galaxy, but it picks up after the original trilogy has finished. So the Empire has fallen. But surviving factions now want to get Thrawn back. It's like, if the Emperor's gone, we need Grand Admiral Thrawn to come back and rebuild the Empire. So there's a race to do that, to find a map, to find the means to get to this other galaxy, to rescue him and bring him back. Racing against those Empire factors is Ahsoka, along with Sabine from Rebels, who is sort of her apprentice, but not really. It's an 8-episode story. The first half is spent mostly trying to find the thing that will get them to the galaxy far, far away. And the back half is them in this new galaxy trying to stop Thrawn from being able to return, reuniting with Ezra, all of that stuff as well. I really enjoyed it, but I really enjoyed it because I really liked the Rebels show and I really liked the continuation of that story. I thought everybody was very well cast with the exception of Rosario Dawson, but she did grow on me. It was just her mannerisms didn't match the Ahsoka that I knew from the show. But from a story perspective, it sort of explained why she was acting like that. And then she sort of changed according to the adventures she went on the show and became more like the Ahsoka that I knew. I really love Natasha Liu Bordizzo as Sabine and Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera. In some instances, the voice actors have come back to play the live-action versions, whether it's Lars Mikkelsen as Thrawn or Clancy Brown, whatever. A majority, though, of the characters have been recast. And I think, while it's a little odd that their voices don't exactly match with what you remember in your head, I think it's fine. I think it's not worth worrying about. It was a very interesting experience, not without its faults. It's not a perfect show, but I really think that what made it work for me was it wasn't like this brand new thing where they just relied on people's nostalgia for Rebels and Ahsoka to just come up with some stuff for 8 episodes or so. It was a full-on dedication to everybody that loved that Rebels show and wants to see that story continued. And be damned anybody else who tunes in who doesn't know that, because you'll just have to catch up, but we don't care. And I like that. I like when there's a priority to storytelling over recognition, I guess. It's not necessarily homework, because I feel like you can watch this and not know all that stuff, but there's not a need of tripping over yourself to explain too much, but also not too obvious so that everybody who watched Rebels watching this is like, yes, I know all this, I saw it. A lot of the talk about it is a couple of standout actors. Obviously, Ray Stevenson was in here playing Baylan Skoll, who's like a fallen Jedi character. He was really good in it, and it's such a shame that he passed away after this, because his story is not over. So I really hope they recast him, or find a way to do his story justice, rather than just, I don't know, leave him to the wayside or something. And the other big thing, of course, is Hayden Christensen being back as Anakin Skywalker, mainly to be in flashbacks, Force visions, ghosts. I felt like his first appearance worked for the story, and then anything after that I felt was just, well, we've got Hayden Christensen on set, we may as well keep using him. So, you know, it's about having your cake and eating it too, I guess. Where it didn't work for me, well, let's keep working about where it did work for me. The music was fantastic. The CG looked pretty good for a TV Star Wars show. It was very exciting. I looked forward to it every week, and it left me satisfied with the overall story that was told. However, it's not perfect. I felt there were some missed opportunities in certain bits. I felt like they were really ready to break through out of that creatively constricted zone that I was talking about earlier, but they never quite went into the deep end of the pool. They jumped into the shallows, but they didn't swim all the way. Mainly being, I was so excited when they were talking about how they were going to a brand new galaxy. Thrawn and Ezra had been in this brand new galaxy for 5, 6, 7 years. Been a while. It's supposedly a different galaxy. It's completely different to anything we've seen in the Star Wars world. So what I was excited for to be what happened between Thrawn and Ezra while they were away for so long. How have they survived? What has happened to them? And 2, what will this brand new galaxy be like? What cultures will we see? What zaniness will be in the Star Wars world that has never been before? And the answer to all those questions is, don't worry about it. Nothing. When we're reunited with Thrawn and Ezra, they're just sort of doing their own thing. There's no sense of any sort of conflict between them or lasting impressions of being stuck in the middle of nowhere. Thrawn's just like, you here? Sweet. I got the car running. Let's go. And Ezra's like, man, I was just fishing by the river. Okay, let's go. So that felt like a wasted opportunity, but maybe it will build on that more. I don't know. Frustratingly, the new galaxy was limited to just one planet, which was just barren. It felt completely void of any life or meaning or wonder. We met some turtle creatures, but wasn't particularly unusual. Some characters are still in this galaxy by the end of the show, so maybe there's still some more to see, but I don't know. To me, I'm worried that we're in this brand new bit of Star Wars storytelling that we've never been before. Let's take full advantage of it, and we're not going to do it. I guess another fault for the show is that it is so much a Star Wars Rebels Season 5 that it being called Ahsoka and it being about Ahsoka Tano was kind of redundant. She's not really the star of her own show. She's definitely very powerful and she's doing some important stuff, but I never felt like the show was about her and it was important to her story. I just sort of felt like she was a part of an ensemble to continue the Star Wars Rebels story. However, I can't say I'm excited that I get a Rebels Season 5 and then be like, but it's a shame we got a Rebels Season 5. So I don't know. It's really hard for me to talk about this one because I really enjoyed it and I liked it. But in the back of my mind, I know that why I liked it is for reasons that I've got mad at other people for liking other Star Wars things. So I'm aware of the hypocrisy that's going on here. Overall, what I can really say about Ahsoka is that I had a good time with it. I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to see where they go with this, if they cross it over with The Mandalorian. I think it was executed really well in terms of casting and the continuation of the Rebel storyline, and is bridging the possibility of breaking away from traditional Star Wars storytelling. I'm a little worried that now that we've got Grand Admiral Thrawn properly back in the mix, it's just going to be an Empire thing. But there's some mysticism stuff that I think he's picked up from the other galaxy, which might make it different. I don't know. But I'm cautiously optimistic. At the same time, I don't know if this show can be enjoyed for everybody. I need to know. I need to talk to someone who has watched it, who does not know who Ahsoka is, who did not watch Star Wars Rebels, and see if they are able to access it in a way that they can have fun and not feel left behind or confused. So, what's the overall point here? If you like Ahsoka Tano, the character, you should like this. I don't know for certain, but I think you should. If you really like Star Wars Rebels and those characters, you'll definitely like this. This is just more Rebels content for you. If you like Star Wars in general and you don't really care about who's who and what's what, and you just like the visuals and the music and the exciting story, I think you'll get a kick out of it. Now's the time. Now I'm interested to see what's next. I don't know what show's coming next. I don't know what the plan is with the strike and things. Everyone's a bit quiet at the moment. I'm sure once the strikes 2 of 2 are officially over, we'll get an update about it. But for now, Ahsoka ends on a cliffhanger where I'm just like, when will this story continue? I don't know. But for once, I'm excited for it to continue, and I'm looking forward to the next chapter of this story, however it's told, whether it's a season 2 for Ahsoka, an Heir to the Empire movie, an animated thing, I don't know, but bring it on. I'm intrigued. There, well, thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. Next week, I'm going to do some more MCU stuff. I'm going to go back in time because it has been a while, and I got to close that gap between WandaVision and everything that came before it. So at least on YouTube now, I can have a complete playlist of MCU stuff that's been analyzed. And we got so many more shows and movies still to do. And Loki's currently out. I won't be talking about Loki because I already talked about season 1. I will talk about the Marvels when that comes out. Some more movies are coming. Killers of the Flower Moon, Hunger Games, Wonka. So be sure to keep listening because we got some content. We got some stuff to keep on keeping on. So awesome times ahead. Until then, I love and appreciate you all. As always, thank you for listening. It is a treat. It means a lot to me. And I will catch you next time. You've been spliced in later. Adios, muchachos.